What's up, Varla fans? Shawnyrick here, and today I'm finally going to be able to show you, because I got all the parts for it, on how to install a brand new controller and a new battery into the Varla Eagle 1 version 2. I also have already installed a new controller and a battery on the Varla Eagle 1 Pro, but the issue that I had is that my SD card during the time that I filmed that ended up being corrupted and messing up. The process on how you install the controller and the battery in any of the Varla scooters is always the same, and most of your e-scooters out there. It's basically just a plug-and-play system. I got an error 6 code that ended up taking place on the Eagle 1 Pro on my ride, and it actually stalled on me completely, and I had to get my son to come and pick me up. So after all that took place and I got it home and I was able to open up the deck, I found that the fuses on the Varla Eagle 1 Pro were melted together and literally fused together. The thing with that is that it was so melted and so bad that I thought that was a little odd, because you shouldn't have your fuses melting down like that. Because I had one of the original Varla Eagle 1 Pros when I got it, I knew that there were some quirks to it that Varla was still working out. So what I did is I contacted them, and we figured out that it's probably best to go ahead and get a brand new controller that they have put out for it, which has been revised, and also just get a new battery. So when I got the controller and the battery in, it was completely different in the fact that the older Eagle 1 Pro wiring compared to the new controller never matched up. So basically what I had to do is I had to take all the wires, you cut the ends off, and then you're gonna have to cut all the connectors off on the controller. And you just go, well, what? That sounds like a lot of work. Well, that's the only way you're really able to do it, because the newer controller for the Eagle 1 Pro is adapted for the latest model. So that way, that one there, if you have the newer ones, just a plug and play version, you simply just unplug one end, plug the other end in, and you're good to go. However, I didn't have that. I had to end up splicing the wires and rewiring that whole thing myself. But it's not as complicated as you think, because you'll find that even on the new controller, every single wire is color coordinated. So all you have to do is just make sure to tie in all the wires together, red to red, green to green, yellow to yellow, blue to blue, black to black. And that's how I had to do the whole thing on the Eagle 1 Pro. And it was a success. Once I got that new controller installed and everything completely redone, I no longer had an issue with the battery charging on the LCD screen showing like 96% or 94%. It actually showed 100% all the time. And I didn't have any more play in the thumb throttle itself. So come to find out that thumb throttle this whole time was a controller issue. Not only that, but in the controllers now, when you get them shipped new, the DC adapter unit that runs your lights to your scooter is embedded now into the controller. So these same wires that usually come out now are all installed within the controller. So what that does is it just makes it less clunky inside the deck here, so you have less wires to have to deal with. And that also just makes the functionality of the new controller way better. I've had the smoothest rides on the Eagle 1 Pro since I got the brand new controller, the redesigned controller, I should say, and a new battery in it. It's almost just flawless now, way better than it was when I originally got it stock. So now that that part is out of the way, I want to dive into the Eagle 1 version 2 now, and why I'm having to replace the controller and the battery. The situation with this one was a lot different. I was riding down the road with the V2 here, coming home from work. Luckily I made it, but what was weird is that one of the wheels started to cut out on me, and I was like, okay, what's going on now? So I had the one wheel that was still working. I was able to get home, but I didn't realize, because it was late at night, that there was smoke coming from this part right here. Right below the neck here, right where the connector ports are, and it just smelled, you know, obviously like fried wire, something electronic was burning. I'm like, crap, I need to like shut this thing off, let it sit, let it cool down, put it in a safe environment. So I actually left it outside for a while to make sure it wasn't going to ignite, that it was going to be safe, not start on fire and stuff. So after I let it cool down and made sure it was safe, I brought it back into the house and I opened up the deck, and I found the DC unit, this unit right here, was completely fried, and I got pictures of that too to show you. Started melting down and fusing together, and then it ended up melting the wires to the controller, my old controller, which here's the old controller, and you can see the burn marks. There's burn marks there, and I got pictures of this too. You can still see the charcoal marks on the old one, but it pretty much would have created a pretty bad problem. So I am glad that it did start smoking, because that's what allowed me to find out what the issue is. But anyhow, so that's what I wanted to explain first before we get started. Let's get the brand new controller in, the new battery in, and I'm even going to put on the brand new wide Eagle One V2 deck. You know, I did a video recently before this thing went down on how to put the seat on and what the seat was like riding it, and I did. I enjoyed the seat on this, and now since I had an excuse to open it up and redo it, I want to add the wide deck and then now ride it around with the wide deck, which I hear is just sweet. So with all that said, let's dive into this thing. Let's get this thing rebuilt and let's get started. The first thing you want to make sure that, of course, this is completely cleared out and that there is no debris in there. So I think we are good to go now. So inside here, see those 4 holes? 1, 2, 3, 4. These controllers are literally screwed into the deck. Okay, now something to note is that this is the new one here, and you have to connect this end to the other controller down here. So I'm looking at the old one, and I noticed that it's the white, gray, yellow, black, blue, and the orange, gray, blue, white, black, yellow that connect together so the two controllers can operate, send signals to each other. Blue, black, yellow, gray, white is right there on this one. This is the new one. And then this is, and by the way, there's 2 controllers. You have to order both. So you have to order controller A and B on Varla. You can't just get one and expect both. They actually have an A and B option when you order them. So make sure you order A and B. And they're not too badly priced. But anyhow, once you get them both, you're going to plug A into B like this, and I would do that before you mount the other one down. And all you got to do is just match the connection, plug it in, you're good to go. So once you get that out of the way, then go ahead and mount it into place. Okay, so the first hub motor cord's right here. So we're going to take that, we're going to plug it into the front hub connector, make sure that the divot lines up, and it should connect right into place. And then we're going to take the other, we're going to take the controller A wires and make sure, you know, they're all lined up, red, black, yellow, green, blue. This is red, black, yellow, green, blue. And then of course it should just connect this way. It does look like that connected okay. Then now we got to put the rear hub motor, plug that into place. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Plug that on in, because this one B, this is B for the rear. It says it on there, BA. And then we're going to take, of course, the same color coordinated wires. We got red, black, yellow, green, blue. is going to line up with the connector and plug in like that. The white cable, there's one here, I'll show you, that is under here. It's under the bracket there, that's white as well. That one right there, it's got to go back into the hole in here. Alright, then we're going to get that in, we're going to plug that in. Now that we got all that done, I'll leave this out. I do want to get the battery plugged in and all the connectors next. So let's do that. You want to just make sure when you're putting this battery back in that you have all the side cushions. There's side cushions. There's one here and one here and one here and one here. Just make sure you have these rubber cushions in place, back in place before you insert the battery. So when you push it down, it's a nice tight fit. But I'm also making sure that I get all the wires up and out of the way as well, to know that that is seated properly, pushing it back as far as I can to make sure I got space in here. All right, and then we got to take this bad boy and we got to get this all the way up through the neck from this side. It'll come out like that, and then basically that's the wire that's then going to go up from underneath through here, and you're going to go up through here, and then it's going to plug right back into place with this here. So this is going to go to this. I want to make sure it all lines up correctly. Arrow to arrow and push together. All right, now the only thing we need to do that's left is to plug the battery into the controller. And of course, I always like to double check, make sure the fuses are good and in there nice like they're supposed to be. Now I always get gloves on with this because sometimes they do tend to spark a little bit. One, see, it did spark a little bit when I plugged it in, and if you just do it fast and get that in there, and you're fine. See, it does spark a little bit. First connection, kind of wild. It will do that, that's normal. Then we are going to grab the charge ends, which are right here. These connections here allows the battery to charge. All right, we got it all wired up. So now all we have to do is turn it on and hope it works. Moment of truth here. Let's see if this thing is gonna work. All right, looks like it all turned on. Pass one, both of them work. Let's go pass two. Both of them work. Pass three. Pass four. Pass five. Looks like everything works that way. Now I just got to figure out the lights. Now with this, you'll notice there is 6 wires on this unit. Now remember, this is not the original one, which is what caused me to have to replace all this. all you got to do is worry about the pins lining up together. So you have 6 pins, six pins on that, and then you just make sure that the 6 pins connect back in place. 6 to 6, so I always just double check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plug in, just like that. This here, by the way, is an aftermarket DC volt, and I'll definitely put the link on it. It took me a long time to find this. Varla doesn't sell it on their websites, but this is the closest configuration that I found, and it actually works just fine. It's just now you got to kind of find which wire controls which spot. So this one here, I had it first plugged into this, the main headlight into this, which this wasn't correct. So then I plugged it into this port, and then now the headlight works just fine when I push it down. As you can see here, I'll show you. So then I push the headlight button and it shuts off. So we know that that's correct. Oh, wow, this is long-winded for sure. Those little screws, man. Holy smokies. Whew. Alright, got that off. Alright, so for those of you that want to see what the runner lights look like, that's what they look like. Just like that. Alright, so what I found out after just working through some things is that this brake light here, or the LED light for the back, no longer works. So something failed in this because when I reattached it all to try to get to work, it smoked again on me because something failed in the LED system here. And then it got hot and it started smoking, and I tested it earlier. So something is not connected right in here. So unfortunately, I'm not going to have any brake lights for a while, but I don't really need them because I got a backpack that says I'm braking and all that, and I'll rewire all that later. Something in the circuitry here fouled this up, which then caused this to foul up, and then that's what caused all this to cook inside here originally, which is why I had to replace the controllers and all that. This literally caught on fire and it melted everything together in here. So I'm just gonna disconnect all this, clip the wires, the light's no good anyways, put it back on just for looks, and then we're gonna go from there. All right, so as you can see, I clipped the wires off, and we're just gonna have this just for looks because it's gonna go back on here, of course. But what we're gonna have to do though is, just because water can creep down into the edges here, get into here possibly in the rain, and then of course the back end here too as well. So what I'm going to do, since I don't have any wires going through there anymore, is I'm going to be putting some silicone in here. I'm also going to put some silicone on the edge of this, and it's just going to make sure that this thing is so tight that no rain leaks in there whatsoever before I put all this back on. So I'm going to do that right now. And of course we got our Loctite kit here. We're going to puncture it. Clip off the end. I like to go a little tight as possible, so I'm going to clip off right about here. Boom. Then we're going to just seal off that hole. That hole is completely covered, just like that. So we're going to let that dry. I'm going to put a bead of this stuff around the edge just so that way I can make sure that I'm not going to have any water leaks here when I put this thing back on, or water seeping down inside this thing. Go around the whole thing. Then slide that back into place just like that. Alright, so now let's just get this side back out. We're going to cut the wires to this side too, and we're just going to seal this up. And then wipe it down. And they're good to go. Now that we got all that done, we are now gonna just put it all back. And so since we at least got my headlight working, and we found out that the side rail lights and stuff that caused everything to smoke in here, I feel so much safer now putting this thing back together and not having to worry about anything acting up anymore. So we're just going to tuck all that back in like that, and then since we're putting the large deck on, we're going to put this down first, and I got to take off all the old silicone here. Alright, once we get that all done, I'm going to put another bead back underneath the rubber seal here. And it's got some caulking on it already from before, but just going to reseal it. Kind of just lightly put it over the holes here so it acts like a kind of glue. So that way when I put the screws back in, it won't interfere with anything. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Another bead of caulking here. Make sure no water's going to get down in there. Alright, and then just going to... Now the silicone and the rubber doesn't really come off too well because they stick really good to one another. So even if you have some old silicone on there, it's okay. It'll be just fine. So I got that all back in place. And then now, the last thing to do is to put this on. And then now we're going to put on the new deck. So underneath here, when you're redoing all that, there's this little wire holder plastic thing deal there. And then with that, there's 2 screws on top right here. So you have to just put those screws back into this to hold it in place. But before we do that, I want to silicone the crap out of that hole there. Just like that. All right, and then now I'm gonna screw down the bracket here. We're gonna now coil these wires back up. And we are done.